They said it was for the view. The poolside has such lovely lighting, my mother cooed, gesturing to a small, lonely table tucked beside the edge of the terrace, far from the spotlight of the grand dining pavilion, but we all knew what it meant. At my father's 75th birthday celebration, complete with champagne towers, drone fireworks, and imported orchids, I was the only one not seated at the family table. No seat near the stage, no spotlight. Just the shadow seat. It's where they put people like me, the ones they don't understand. The ones they assume failed. Inside, my brother Logan raised his glass, beaming as he bragged about locking down a $20 million property flip. My sister Ava floated across the marble floor in gold couture, her phone in one hand, her smile rehearsed for the live stream. Dad nodded proudly at them both, his success stories. Me, I was the one who does something with tech. They never asked more than that. They never wanted to know. I stirred my ice water, watching the staff refill Ava's glass with vintage rosé that cost more than my high school tuition. Nobody noticed I wasn't inside, nobody cared, which was fine. I checked my phone, 3 missed calls from legal, a new message, valuation confirmed. 10.2B papers en route. You sign, we announce. I looked up. Logan was now telling a guest how his firm was redefining the real estate game. Funny. That same firm had just been acquired last week, by me, through a shell company, to protect the Brooks legacy, of course. Ava laughed from across the glass, tossing her perfect hair. You're still doing your little app, right? She called. We were just saying how brave it is that you're still trying. I smiled, calm. Inside, they clinked glasses in celebration of illusions, and then I heard it, faint but unmistakable. Rotor blades. I checked the time, 12 minutes early. Efficient, as always. Ava's smile faltered. Is that a helicopter? I stood slowly, straightened my blazer. Simple, understated, impeccably tailored. They didn't know it yet, but the woman in the shadow seat was about to own the table, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this. Because when that helicopter lands and the truth hits the table, the entire family legacy, it flips. Don't scroll away, this story's just getting good. Hit that subscribe and turn on notifications because what happens next is the kind of twist you don't want to miss. They always said I was different, not in a good way, just off, quiet. Odd, the kind of child who preferred libraries to tennis courts, who asked too many questions at the wrong dinners. While Logan was praised for his natural charisma, and Ava was paraded through every debutante event from Malibu to Manhattan, I was the one they politely ignored at charity galas. The one who built computers from scrap parts while other girls styled dollhouses. Dad used to joke, she'll either be a genius or a liability, hopefully the first. Mom would laugh too quickly. I learned early that attention in our family came in 2 forms, admiration or disappointment. There was no middle ground. And for a girl who didn't wear designer labels, didn't crave country club gossip, and didn't care about brand name schools, I didn't fit either box. So I disappeared, not physically, but socially, emotionally, publicly. Let them believe I was just finding myself. They didn't see me skip undergrad and build my first machine learning algorithm by 19. They didn't know I raised $10 million in seed capital before I turned 22. They never asked what I was doing in Tokyo, Berlin, or Singapore. Ava thought I was soul-searching. Logan told people I was in some kind of tech rehab. That suited me just fine. While they curated image, I cultivated insight. While they built appearances, I built infrastructure. And as they sat atop their self-inflated thrones, I stayed in the shadows, buying up pieces of the very industries they bragged about dominating. No one noticed that the data security firm Logan used was owned by a holding company, which I controlled, or that Ava's influencer brand used an algorithm I designed to inflate her engagement metrics, one that reported to my team. Every time they toasted their success, I tracked the return on my quiet investments. Every award they won, every stage they posed on, I paid for the spotlight, and still I was never invited to the table. That's when I stopped waiting for a seat. I started buying the building. My first real company, Orion Systems, launched in total silence. No press, no branding, no public presence. Just results. By the time they noticed the name, it was already everywhere. And now, tonight, beneath the chandelier-strewn sky of my father's over-designed party, the final piece was falling into place. They still thought I was just the quiet one, but quiet doesn't mean weak. Sometimes silence is the strategy. The vibration was subtle, barely noticeable beneath the white linen of my table. But for me, it was the moment everything shifted. I glanced at my phone. One new message. Board assembled, contract inbound, chopper ETA 8 minutes. That was it. 3 years, 9 shell companies, dozens of strategic acquisitions. And now, one final signature would tie it all together. 10.2 billion, the largest private tech consolidation of the decade. And no one here had a clue. Ava was mid-toast, still live streaming to her 1.2 million followers about authenticity while sipping champagne I'd technically purchased through my media subsidiary. Logan was boasting about a land development deal in Arizona. He didn't realize that parcel had been bought last week by a holding group registered in the Cayman Islands, owned by me. I wasn't just in tech. I was tech. While my family scrambled for applause, I was building the stage they performed on. And tonight, that curtain was about to fall. I reached for my briefcase, black, leather, minimal. Ava had mocked it last Christmas. Very startup chic, she'd said. It now contained a contract worth more than her combined net worth. Madison, darling, my mother's voice cut through my thoughts as she approached with a carefully constructed smile. We've just announced the Family Legacy Initiative. Logan will take point on expansion, of course, but we'd love for you to contribute. Maybe something small? A charity app? Something sweet. I nodded slowly. Sounds impactful. She beamed, clearly not hearing the sarcasm, then leaned in. Don't feel bad, dear. Not everyone is meant to lead. Some of us are just meant to support. Support? Like a chair or a shadow, I smiled. You're absolutely right. In the distance, the low hum of rotor blades began to rise, barely audible to most. But to me, it was the sound of power shifting. I looked up. Logan was laughing with investors, Ava twirling for cameras, Dad sipping bourbon like royalty. Still convinced I was a nobody. In 7 minutes, they'd learn otherwise, because the girl in the shadow seat, she was done waiting, and she brought backup. It's about to go down. If you're still watching, you're in the right place, because in the next chapter, that helicopter lands and the truth hits like a missile. Hit subscribe, don't blink, you're going to want front row for what happens next. Madison, seriously, Logan's voice cut across the patio, far louder than it needed to be. He raised his champagne glass like he was offering a toast to mockery. Are you still doing that little tech thing? Or have you finally decided to get a real job? The laughter that followed wasn't loud. It was worse, quiet, condescending, practiced. I didn't respond, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Instead, I folded the napkin on my lap and watched through the glass as my sister Ava struck a pose for a photographer, turning the dinner into a mini fashion shoot. Her dress glinted like it was desperate for attention. Her smile did too. Madison, Ava called sweetly, her heels clicking against the marble as she made her way over, camera still rolling on live stream. Come join us for a pic. We need a before and after. You know, glamour versus minimalist chic. Her followers would eat it up. the successful siblings and the awkward third wheel. I rose slowly, brushing invisible lint from my blazer. "Maybe later," I said, voice smooth. "Still working on that app thing," she added under her breath, barely suppressing a smirk. Mother joined us with a flute of something sparkling and absurdly expensive. "Darling, Logan is preparing to announce a new firm under the Brooks name," she said proudly. "It'll be his legacy. Your father is beyond thrilled, and Ava just got approached by Harper's Bazaar for a cover feature." Then, as if an afterthought, "And you, dear? What have you been up to?" I smiled gently, still supporting. They nodded in perfect ignorance, still convinced I was an extra in their story. A placeholder. The proof that not everyone wins. Inside the dining hall, Dad stood and tapped his glass for attention. "My friends," he declared, "tonight we raise a glass to real success, to vision, to legacy." He gestured toward Logan and Ava. "To the future of the Brooks name." Everyone clapped. No one looked at me, which was perfect. Because the future of the Brooks name, it wasn't in their hands anymore. It was already mine. Signed, sealed, and currently descending from the sky. The lights outside dimmed slightly as shadows rippled across the lawn. Not clouds, rotors. Closer now, they still didn't hear it, still too busy celebrating themselves. But they would, very soon. I didn't need to say a word. Not yet. The helicopter was closer now. I could hear it. Low, deliberate, unapologetic. The sound cut through their clinking glasses, slicing the air like a warning. I remained seated, legs crossed, one hand casually resting on my phone. The contract was open on the screen. Digital signature pending. "Madison," Dad's voice boomed across the patio, trying to sound warm but laced with discomfort. "You sure you don't want to come inside? Logan's presenting his big expansion plan." "Might inspire you." Inspire me? The same man who once told me I was too soft for business now thought I needed pointers from Logan? "I'm good out here," I said smoothly. "More than good." Logan smirked. "That's the spirit." "Not everyone's built for pressure, right?" Then he turned back to his presentation, bragging about leveraging old money into new opportunity. If only he knew. Behind them, Ava finally noticed the sound in the sky. "Is that a helicopter?" she asked, frowning. Logan rolled his eyes. Probably a golf influencer, or one of Ava's wannabe fans trying to make an entrance. He laughed. "She didn't. I checked my watch, right on time." The estate's private security looked confused as the helicopter came into view. Sleek, matte black, with the logo of a company none of them recognized. Orion Systems, Inc., a few guests began murmuring, cameras tilted upward. Waitstaff paused mid-pour. Then came the wind, the downdraft of power. Tablecloths lifted, Ava's curls flew sideways. Logan shielded his champagne from debris. And me? I stood up, slowly, calmly, and picked up my briefcase. The same briefcase they all used to mock. Now carrying the purchase agreement for everything they thought they owned. Ava called out, voice strained. "Maddie, do you know who that's for?" "Yes," I replied, and began walking, deliberate, heels sharp against stone. One of my security agents emerged from the aircraft, earpiece gleaming. He scanned the crowd, then spotted me. "Miss Brooks," he said, voice crisp, "the board is assembled. We're awaiting your confirmation." Gasps rippled across the room. My family froze. The shadow seat was empty now. Because the one they dismissed had just arrived as the owner. The helicopter descended like a judgment. Its blades sent linen napkins flying, champagne sloshing out of crystal flutes, and a ripple of confusion through a party that had only moments ago been bragging, posing, and toasting its own self-congratulation. I stood, not rushed, not rattled, just ready. For the first time that evening, the eyes that had so easily dismissed me now locked on my every move. My head of security approached as if choreographed. "Miss Brooks," he said over the hum of the rotors, "the board is fully assembled. Final acquisition papers are on board." "They await your signature." I nodded once. "Thank you, James." Then stepped forward, toward the aircraft, toward everything. Behind me, silence cracked. "Wait, what's going on?" Logan barked. His voice had lost its usual arrogance. Now it held something new, fear. Ava's phone dropped mid-live stream. Did he just say acquisition? Dad was already moving, slow, disoriented, like the ground was shifting beneath him. "Madison," he called out, his voice strained. "This is a birthday party, not some corporate stunt." I turned, slowly, lifted my briefcase, black leather, custom monogram, tragically unfashionable, according to Ava, and opened it calmly. Inside, the contracts, the deal, the power. "You asked what I've been up to," I said. I was just quiet about it. Logan scoffed. "You? Your Orion systems?" I didn't flinch. "No. I built Orion systems," gasps. And then the shatter. Ava's champagne glass slipped from her hand, exploded on the marble tile like a warning shot. "I bought up your real estate shell corporations, Logan," I said, stepping closer. "And your so-called crown jewel?" It was hemorrhaging money. "My team cleaned it up." He blinked. "But why?" "To protect the Brooks name," I said simply. "From you." Ava's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then finally, "And the AI firm that turned me down?" "Mine," I said. "We don't do partnerships with influencers who fake engagement metrics." I glanced at her shoes. "Or wear knockoff Balmain." She stumbled back a step. Dad raised a shaking hand. "You're telling me you've been doing all this in secret?" "I gave you every chance to ask," I said. "You never did." James reappeared, offering the pen. "The board's waiting, ma'am." I took it, signed, clean. Precise, final. The moment the ink dried, my phone buzzed. $10.2 billion deal closed. Orion now holds controlling stake across 14 global subsidiaries. Logan looked at me like he didn't recognize his own sister. Ava looked at me like she'd just seen a ghost. Dad said nothing. I turned to them one last time. "You always saved me a seat in the shadows," I said. "Now I own the building." Then I stepped into the helicopter. Still listening? If this story flipped your expectations the way I flipped theirs, leave a like. Let's keep this momentum going. The flight crew shut the cabin door behind me, but I didn't sit. Not yet. Through the helicopter's glass, I could still see them, my family, standing frozen on the terrace like statues left out in a storm. Logan stepped forward, dazed. He held a crumpled napkin like it could somehow hold his pride together. "Wait," he called out, shouting over the hum of the rotors. "This doesn't make sense." "The family firm, our real estate legacy, it's not for sale." I leaned slightly toward the open door, my voice low but sharp. "It wasn't," I said, "until it was bankrupt." Ava's head snapped toward him, napped. "Bankrupt?" Logan looked like he'd swallowed glass. "No, I've been managing the books." "You've been managing appearances," I corrected. "I've been managing reality." I pulled a slim folder from my briefcase and handed it to James. He descended the steps and placed it neatly in front of my father. Inside, purchase agreements, shell company disclosures, a formal resignation letter from Logan himself, forged using language his assistant had copied from old board memos. Clean, legal, irrefutable. Dad opened it slowly, scanning each page like it might bite him. "You bought our company?" he finally said. "Our family business?" I met his eyes through the glass. I saved it, I replied, before your golden child drove it into the ground. Ava stepped forward. Why not tell us? Why do all this behind our backs? I smiled genuinely this time. Because telling you wouldn't have worked. You only hear what flatters you. You only trust what sparkles. Logan stepped closer. You want to humiliate us? No, I said simply. That's just a bonus. And then I turned to my CFO, already seated beside me. Let's go, I said. The helicopter lifted. Below, the estate grew smaller. So did their pride. Through the headset, my assistant chimed in. Media's requesting comment. Shall we issue the press release? I nodded. Title it, The Silent Takeover, How Madison Brooks Bought Her Legacy Back. And then I leaned back in my seat, the hum of the rotors soft in my ears. They thought I was the family failure. Now I owned the family. The sound of the rotors faded into the background as the helicopter lifted higher over the Pacific, carrying me away from a legacy that never included me, until I claimed it. From this altitude, the Brooks estate looked like something out of a postcard. Grand, impressive, irrelevant. The patio, where they once exiled me, was now just a dot. The main table, once reserved for the worthy, now a stage with no actors left to play the parts. I didn't look down to say goodbye. Some chapters closed themselves. In front of me, the screen of my tablet lit up. Live news alerts flooded in. Orion Systems CEO revealed as Madison Brooks in 10.2B power move. Family business acquired in silent hostile takeover. My assistant was beaming. The press is going wild. You just went global in 3 minutes. Let them, I said calmly, leaning back into the leather seat. This wasn't about headlines. It never was. My phone vibrated nonstop. Logan, Madison, we need to talk. We can spin this together. Ava, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Can we meet privately? Dad, I underestimated you. Let's discuss the family legacy. I scrolled. Scanned, saved none. Then, with a small swipe, I forwarded them all into a new folder. Label, too little, too late. For years, they had the chance to see me. To ask, to care, they didn't. And I didn't need them to. Outside, the coastline unfurled like a new beginning. From this view, I saw cities I owned shares in, companies I helped build, futures I'd already designed. The woman they once called unremarkable had just bought their table and didn't even want a seat anymore. I used to dream of proving them wrong, I said quietly. But now, I realize I never needed to. My CFO glanced at me. So what's next? I smiled. More building, but quietly, just like always. Then she handed me a small velvet pouch. Inside a nameplate, CEO, Madison Brooks. I ran my fingers over the engraving. The irony. The first time anyone in my family ever called me by my full name with respect would probably be through a press release. I looked out the window one last time at the shrinking house, the perfectly trimmed gardens, the people scrambling to rewrite their place in a story they never bothered to read. They thought exile was the worst they could do to me. Turns out it was the greatest gift. Isolation forced me to build. Distance gave me clarity. Silence became strategy. Now I didn't just belong at the table, I owned the table. The house, the legacy, and the future. They always mistook my silence for weakness, for hesitation, for failure. But silence, when chosen, isn't a void. It's a weapon, a canvas, a plan. While they chased applause, I chased alignment. While they posted, I positioned. While they celebrated early wins, I built long games. You see, noise is easy. Anyone can scream success. But building something real, something that speaks for itself, that takes patience, discipline. Silence. They thought I was hiding. I wasn't. I was planting. And while they danced under chandeliers and bragged about borrowed victories, I was laying bricks underground until the foundation could hold an empire not built to impress, but built to endure. They wanted me loud so they could dismiss me. I stayed quiet so they'd forget me. And that made my return impossible to ignore. There's a unique kind of power in being underestimated. No expectations. No pressure, just freedom. And if you use that freedom right, you don't just rise. You rise without permission. So to the ones still sitting on the patio, to the ones writing you off, speaking over you, underestimating everything you are, let them laugh. Let them toast. Let them sit at their little tables and pretend they own the world. Because if you're building something real, you don't need their seat. You don't need their spotlight, you just need time and silence. Because silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you're building something so big, so undeniable, that when you do speak, the whole room turns to listen. So now let me ask you, have you ever been underestimated? Ever been seated on the sidelines while others soaked in the spotlight? Ever stayed quiet? Not because you had nothing to say, but because you were busy building something bigger? Then this story isn't just mine, it's yours too. Drop your experience in the comments. What empire are you building in silence? I read everyone. And if this story spoke to you, hit that subscribe, tap like, and share it with someone who's building in the shadows. Because we all deserve our moment at the table. And trust me, when it's your time to rise, the whole damn room will hear it.